Hello students, welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Dr. K.R. Ramamohan, Associate Professor, Head Department of Anthropology, Sikkim University. Today we are going to talk about a module on neo-evolutionism from the paper Theories and Methods in Social and Cultural Anthropology. Before we begin this module, let us see what are the different learning objectives at the end of the lecture. To introduce history of anthropological thought by tracing its historical development, to classify the course of historical development, academic and anthropological importance in terms of its development. It is also an attempt to look different methodological approaches to the origin of culture. A theoretical orientation is basically a general attitude about how cultural phenomena are to be explained. As you know, a number of thinkers during this period began to discuss specifically on cultural evolution and how it might have occurred in this whole civilization process. Well, the prevailing theoretical orientation in anthropology during the early 19th century was based on belief that culture generally evolves in an uniform way or pattern, and it progresses in the due course of time. So evolutionism, basically classical evolutionism, talks that all cultures in all the societies had a similar pattern or an uniform way, and it had developed into various ways what we have today. And this whole process has some kind of an end. It reaches to the pinnacle. That is, most societies were believed to or have passed through the same series of stages, whether it could be Africa or whether it could be the Oriental society or the Far East or Oceania or the Americas or Asian, whatever, all these cultures, all these societies might have passed through same stages of to come to an end. This is what the whole perspective of cultural evolution or classical evolutionism might have gave us some understanding to the anthropology. Now, challenging this, that what might have gone through all these stages and how it has been evolved, there is a new, fresh perspective in anthropological thought which challenged this prevailing classical evolutionism is called neo-evolutionism. That is, new evolutionism in understanding all the cultures. It's a school in anthropology concerned with the long-term culture changes. And if you look at one culture, you have some culture and how this thing have taken place in long period, and with similar patterns are also seen or developed in other cultures which they are unrelated or they have no connections with other parts of the world. Geographically, they have been cut off. Neo-evolutionism goes on understanding how these long-term changes and specific cultural changes have taken place in localized cultural context. Well, neo-evolutionism has started in the mid-20th century, and it seeks to address the relation between the long-term changes that are characteristic, especially to human culture in general, and the short-term localized social and ecological adjustments might have taken place, which cause a specific culture to adopt to that environmental conditions and makes a unique culture. This perspective is not being explained by the classical evolutionism. Why certain societies have different culture and why certain other cultures have different cultures. But the basic understanding was that these societies might have passed all the stages uniformly in one direction. But contrary to that, neo-evolutionism challenges says that how could societies adapt the forces, external forces which have come to them, and how they have adjusted and adapted, and they have been internalized these factors which gave a long-term aspects of cultural adjustment to these societies. Unless until there is some kind of a force which hinge upon these societies, cultures cannot change. So this is a good explanation given by the neo-evolutionary perspective, which gives a broader understanding of how unrelated cultures have some similarities, and why they have differed in terms of adjusting to the environment. These things. One of the renowned anthropologists from a neo-evolutionary understanding is Leslie White. Leslie White has radicalized the whole concept of neo-evolutionism in terms of giving a fresh understanding of how societies might have harnessed, or how societies might have utilized natural resources which is prevailing in those geographical conditions, and which adapted and made as a long-term basis for their cultures, and all the social organization have been centered around that kind of a cultural adjustment. So Leslie White was of opinion saying that perhaps for the first time technology was being introduced in this whole theoretical understanding. How cultures have manifested, how cultures have invented technology into their cultural settings, and how this technology has transformed their economy, their religion, their social pattern, and how do they differ from other cultures, and why cultures have this technology and why other cultures do not have technology. This explanation was not given by classical evolutionists. They simply says that all cultures have passed through some one stage, or cultures have similar things, all societies progressed towards the development. But Leslie White has says that technology of human invention is the main key aspect of societies in understanding the cultural evolution. So when we start at how culture evolved and what makes this culture, what are the components of this culture. So in this sense, Leslie White gave a new theoretical understanding that technology was the driving force to harness all the energy levels in a given yeah. And the other neo-evolutionists are Julian Stewart and Marshall Chalins and Elman Service have also significantly contributed in undertaking this neo-evolutionary perspective in terms of cultural evolution. And these understanding says that social evolutionism cannot be taken for granted. Unless until there is an empirical evidence, how can we take it for granted that all societies might have passed only once one similar pattern? And look at all the cultures in the society. So social evolution has no empirical base, and they try to challenge this concept of social evolution. So in that sense, they took immense studies from archaeology, paleoanthropology, to see what are the evidence-based kind of things in a given culture, and how particular societies have that kind of a culture basing on these kinds of archaeological, paleoanthropological evidences, which gave a new understanding. Yes, because of this society has this culture, because they use this technology, because they taken this technology and they have invented this kind of a thing to use that kind of an energy. What are the resources available? What are the materials available in that particular culture? So in this sense, neo-evolutionists have gone beyond the concept of conjectural and armchair anthropologists sitting in a room and saying that all societies might have passed this stage, all cultures have these similarities. So in this sense, this is a breakthrough understanding of whole cultural evolution from saying that each culture is unique and they are inventive in terms of developing a new technology to harness all the energy which is surrounded and all the resources which are available. So how did they discover these resources, and to get these resources, what kind of tools and technology is available? In that sense, neo-evolutionists have discovered that cultures might have invented certain things to bring these changes into, and they internalize these changes into their cultures. And how cultures have advanced. If you look at comparatively all the cultures in this society, some cultures have advanced technology, some cultures do not have technology. So what could be the reason? So this was not explained by classical evolutionists. Why? Why is a society is, when we quote, say that it is an advanced society, or it has some kind of more economic activities when compared to other cultures. So another neo-evolutionist called Gordon Child has given some kind of an understanding that uh, human beings in all these cultures are inventive in terms of food production. So this kind of food production is based on certain kinds of technology. If you look at the classical evolution, that all societies might have passed from hunting gathering societies to horticulturist, and horticulturist to settled agriculturist. So why this has taken place? If you go back and see how certain societies have advanced from horticulture to settled agriculture, there could be perhaps some kind of invention of food production. It is not only just like hunting and gathering, and it is at a sustainable way. So human beings are inventive in a sense that this new invention in terms of food production has given to more advancement of culture, which has lead to little bit of urbanization and industrialization. So this process of simple society in sense of economy to a more level of economy has beautifully explained by neo-evolutionists in terms of how cultures have developed these kinds of technology based, which gives more clues to the whole cultural evolution. Again, Julian Stewart has given three ways of evolutionary phases in terms of in a new three ways. One is the unilinear evolution, in terms of saying that all cultures might have uniquely situated at a historical processes, that it might have taken this technology into their cultures. Then comes this universal evolution, where studying from one culture to all the cultures across the world, and we have this multilinear evolution, which says that different cultures have arose different periods of time in terms of uh, under specific environmental setting groups they have. So in that sense, we can say that cultures have not passed these things, but have evolved at different levels, which we called as multilinear uh, evolution, which says that. Now again, if you look at White's further classification, that all the cultures, not only just they are surviving for their own good, or for just for their society for the sake of to procreation, but culture has three components which are very important to understand in the process of cultural evolution. Uh, he says that he gives a mathematical formula for this neo-cultural evolution. He says that energy which is being produced by a given culture, which is in relation to the technology, is culture. So E into T is equal to C, which is basically a scientific mathematical formula which is given in an anthropological understanding, saying that a culture can be understood in a given specific culture, that what kind of energy it produces, what kind of energy a particular society has, and with this energy, what kind of technology they have. So technology into what, with that kind of a technology they use to harness all the available resources, minerals in a given society, which is given energy, is equal to culture. So in that sense, this is a different, unique explanation that every culture has this energy into technology, which gives, and not only this aspect of energy and technology, he says that culture has been embedded with some three important components. One is this a technological component, the other one is the sociological component, and the third one is the ideological component. So when we say that cultures not only just evolved this thing, but they are also been equipped with these kinds of components, in a sense that the kind of materials, the kind of technology they use to survive themselves, and to also in terms of saving for the future generations. So in that sense, we have to look into, when we are studying a particular culture, what kind of technology they have. When we say primitive culture, so that means it could be an absence of technology, or it could be an absence of energy there. There is no energy levels which are being given in a particular society. So in that sense, this important component of technology, which gives many clues in understanding how a society was inventive. Today, if you look at Western societies and Eastern societies and more developed societies and less developed societies, what do we understand? If you look at from a neo-evolutionary perspective, we can say that, perhaps this society are more inventive and they had this kind of a technology. Technology makes the difference of whether it is advanced or whether it is not advanced, or it is in the process of development. So White's understanding or the other neo-evolutionist contribution to this school of thought gives some kind of perspective and understanding, saying that all cultures are being embedded with this kind of technology, which gives us some kind of an energy. And the other one is the sociological component of that, in a sense that with this kind of technology, with this kind of energy, what kind of social organization they have, what is their religion, what is their family structure, what is the law there, what is the marriage arrangement, what is the other forms of governing things which are related to these kinds of energy and technology. For example, it's an hunting-gathering society, an absence of technology. So if you look at their polity, polity is basically egalitarian. There is no leadership. There is equal status between men and women. There is no inequalities, conflict resolution mechanisms. All are understood in terms of what kind of economy they have, because the absence of the more advanced societies we have in terms of agriculture is, there is a settled agriculture, there is a tax paying, there is some kind of, so in that sense the organization has been understood in terms of what kind of arrangements they have. So in that sense, we can understand this. Then again, ideological. What kind of religion they have? What kind of morality they have? What is aesthetics there? So these are the important components where neo-evolutionists believe that, especially White's understanding throws light on, saying that every culture should be understood from these components of technology and sociological aspects and the ideological or ideational aspects, that how do they construct the worldview, what kind of people have some kind of sense, how do they organize themselves. So in that sense, these components given by Leslie White from a new perspective called a neo-evolutionary perspective, where we can see the long-term changes of all the societies in a given environment, and how a particular localized society in terms of a contextual perspective, that why this unique culture has this kind of a social setup and why the other kind of society has other kind of a social setup. And we can also draw some kind of a similarities in terms of how cultures have evolved of nuclear energy. If you today look at all the societies, today many societies says that they have this nuclear energy. What is this nuclear energy? And nuclear energy is used for variety of uses, not only for agriculture, not only for human medical aspects. So nuclear energy is used for the well-being of the whole society, um, for to promote the goodness of this society. So in a sense that if uh, see that the whole concept of neo-evolutionism centers around how human beings are unique, how human beings are in a sense that inventive in each and every culture, and how did they come with their own technologies in preserving or in harnessing this kind of energy levels, which is completely um, uh, different understanding what we studied or what you studied in terms of that there is a linear way of understanding of cultural evolution, which is completely opposite, saying that all human societies, all human cultures might have gone through these aspects of inventive sense, in a sense that new evolutionists gave a different perspective of understanding cultural development as well as human development. So let us summarize what we have discussed during this lecture about the neo-evolutionary perspective, in a sense that the whole ideas about cultural evolution took a very long time, to take hold, because they contradict uh, the whole biblical understanding of events. That human beings are being created, or they have come from one single ancestor, that is the creator, like God has created um, human beings from a biblical understanding. But this biblical understanding has been challenged, and it has gone beyond saying that there was not one creator. Perhaps there could be, cultural human beings might have developed from a different um, origins, and the origins are being mostly biological. In 18th and 19th centuries, there is an increasing evidence suggested that evolution was very viable, in a sense that evolution can be explained in many perspectives or in many theories. In that sense, both biological and neo-evolutionism, a school in anthropology, is concerned with, as I said before, that what are the long-term culture changes. If you look at one particular culture, why this culture was there for a very long period of time, and with similar patterns of development that may be seen in another historically not related society. For example, in South America, you have the same elements, and in Africa, which is not historically related, you also have the same thing. So how does it could happen? Because these cultures are widely separated. So with this, in the mid 20th century, the thought arose that what is the relation between long-term changes that are characteristic of human culture, particular in general, and what are the short-term, the contextualized, the localized cultures have this social and ecological adjustment. As we have seen in this lecture, that why certain culture has one ecological adjustment and why another culture has another ecological adjustment, which gave us specific cultures which are different from one another, because they have adopted to unique environments or ecological zones. If you take a little bit further, neo-evolutionists or neo-evolutionism also interested to investigate the ways in which different cultures adapt to similar environment. For example, you have one environment here, and they have the same environment. So how did they adapt to the same environment? But they have a different culture. So in this sense, we can see what are the similarities and the differences of cultures in a long-term perspective, and what are the different historical points, what we call historical trajectories of these cultures or of these communities. Now, because Neo-evolutionists are interested in the environmental and technological adjustments of these groups. As I said before, technology is the key factor in deciding how a culture adopts to a given situation. So in that sense, the study is more centered around, and they say that the cultural and ecological approach to each and every ethnographic study. So it could be Leslie White, it could be Julian Stewart, or it could be Marshall Chalins, or it could be Elman Service. If all these ethnographic studies centers around how they harnessed the resources of this given environment, and how they shaped and reshaped with the invention of technology, and what are the cultural processes which have taken place with the help of archaeological understanding, with the help of paleoanthropological understanding of the early proto-humans, and how this biological approach has also been incorporated for the entire human development as well as cultural development. Thank you.